everyone. For this video, we are going to be flipping through this scrapbook that I made. But it's not your typical scrapbook. It's one that I put together for an assignment in my phonetics class. As you can see, and hopefully you can hear, I have my cat here with me. He decided to join our session today. So, this book basically was for my phonetics class, as I said, and what the assignment was to just include examples of each phoneme in different parts of English words. For those of you that aren't familiar with the term phoneme, it just basically means a single sound. In English, it's typically what we think of as a letter, the single sound that a letter makes. But in phonetics, we have what's known as the IPA, and it has some different symbols to represent some of the common, or all of the phonemes, all of the sounds that we use in the English language. So this is our table of contents. You can see all the phonemes are listed along this left column, and the page number, of course. So the first phoneme is T. That's the actual name of the phoneme, is just T. And it's represented with a letter T, a lowercase t. And so the first word I have here is tonsils, because the T sound is in the initial position of the word, T, tonsils. The second word I have is artery. You can see here the T is in the middle of the word. We call this the medial position. And for an example of T in the final position, I chose the word invertebrate. And this is how you write it using the IPA symbols. its International Phonetic Alphabet. So the second phoneme we have in our book here is D, which is similar to T, obviously. It's represented by a lowercase d, and the first word I have here is diarthrosis. The d sound is it at the very beginning of the word, the initial position. And for the medial position, I have endothelium. The d sound is in the middle of the word. And then for the final position, I have mastoid, because the d is at the end of the word. The d. Okay, boy. I wish you can see my cat. Wait, let's take a look at him. He's right here. There you are, boy. He really wants to spend time with mommy right now. Okay, I hope you all don't mind. The next phoneme in our book is K, represented by a lowercase k. So the first word I have here is canal. And we, had to have pictures to illustrate the words that we chose. As you can see, I kind of went with I don't know how you would describe the theme, but I was trying to stick with a sort of like, almost like the dark ages of medicine kind of feel to it. So that's why you see some of these rather strange looking pictures as examples. But the second word that I have for the K phoneme is plica. Plica, which, if I recall correctly, is in the knee, somewhere in the knee joint. That's why I have this picture here. So this is how you write plica, and the K is in the middle of the word, in the medial position. And the last word I have is cardiac. And this is how you write it using the IPA symbols. K, R, D, E, Y, A, K. And there is arc at the very end. A lot of the IPA symbols use, the letters of the English alphabet, but some of them are quite unique looking. You've seen a few of them already in some of these examples. Well, we'll get to those ones later. And this one we have next is G, represented by a lowercase g. And the word I chose for the initial position of G is gastric. And this is how you write it. G, A, S, T, R, I, K. second word is phagocyte. The g sound is in the middle right here. Phagocyte. That's the medial position. And for the final position, I have leg. The g sound is at the very end of the word. Okay, and then next we have the word is p is the next phoneme. So our words are pinna, which is the outer part of your ear that goes like this, the part that you can, grab and kind of move around. That's called your pinna. Okay, so now I remember what the theme was that I was going with was basically anatomy. I stuck with an anatomy theme for this project. Though definitely oh, excuse you, boy, bless you. Definitely like a kind of like old-timey anatomical kind of medical illustrations and such. So the second word I have here is stapes. Stapes. So in these examples I have the white box with the word as it is spelled in the English language, and then in this sort of brown off-white box is the phonetic transcription of how the word is pronounced. So the p sound is in the middle of the word. Stapes. I mean, it's kind of towards the end, but it's still technically in the middle because the s sound comes after it. So as long as it's not in the medial or the final position, as long as it's not in the initial or final position, then it's considered to be in a medial position. Even if it's more towards the front or more towards the end of the word, it doesn't really matter. Still medial. Okay, so the last word is polyp. Here's the transcription: p-a-l-i-p. And this one actually is an example of the final position, p, but it is also an example of the initial position. It just kind of worked out that way. So the next sound is b, represented by the lowercase b, b. And the first word I have here is buccinator. Buccinator. Yeah. I like that symbol right there. We write this little V symbol under the T because it modifies the T phoneme. So the T phoneme would normally be pronounced T, but because this has this little V symbol underneath it, it turns it into a D, kind of not quite a D, but like a tap sound. Buccinator. It's a r sound, like almost like when you say butter. It's actually, believe it or not, the same sound for R in Spanish. So like in Spanish, if you say rojo, like the R sound is that R sound. It's just like a little tap with your tongue. And we actually have the same sound in English when we say butter, though for us we think it's represented with like a T or a D sometimes, depending on the word. But in actuality, it's the same sound. For the medial position, I have labial. And some pictures of some lips here. And that's how you write it. So labial, B is in the middle of the word. And for the final position, I have prescribe, because the B sound is at the end of the word prescribe. So our next, our next phoneme is actually one of the ones that have more interesting symbol that's not from the English alphabet or the Roman alphabet, and the way you pronounce this phoneme is ch, and in English we typically write that as the CH, but in the IPA we write it as ch, which is actually a combination of t and sh, like the T and the SH sound. You combine them together and it makes a ch, CH, ch sound. Technically, that's what they determined based on what your tongue and your other articulators are doing. I find it really interesting, but I know it's not everybody's interest really. But I don't know, I really enjoyed this project. I really enjoyed this class actually. So anyway, the first word I have here is cheekbone. So the ch is at the very beginning of the word in the initial position. And this is actually how you write it. It looks really strange. This is how you write it in the IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet. So we have ch, e, k, b, o, n. The medial position for ch, the word I chose was suture. And this, I think, is a particularly interesting example because suture, the way we write it in English, we write it with a T in the middle, and we could properly pronounce it as suitor or suitor. I'm not sure how it would be more properly pronounced, but in casual or standard American English, we pronounce the T actually as a ch sound, as a CH sound. So suture has the ch phoneme in the middle, and that's suture. That's the symbol. For the last word, for the final position, I chose the word pitch. And this is how you write it. It looks very interesting. I love these symbols actually. Okay, the next phoneme is j, which is just the J sound that we think of as the J sound, but we write it like this in phonetics, and it basically is actually a combination of the D sound and the J sound. When you like combine them together, it makes a J, like J. So the words I have here are jugular for the initial position, and it's written like this. This one looks pretty gnarly, I think. J, g, y, l, r. And for the medial position, I have laryngitis. So the j sound is in the middle or here. J. And then the final position, I chose cartilage. And that's how you write it. So here's our j sound at the very end. Alright, so now we're getting back to some more familiar looking symbols. Here we have the phoneme and we write it with a lowercase m, which makes perfect sense if you're an English speaker, if you're literate in English. And the word for the initial position I have here is medulla, written d, u, l, This is the vowel sound, which we actually don't have a specific letter for in the English alphabet, which is why it has its own unique symbol in the phonetic alphabet. It just looks like an upside down E. I guess we would normally write it like UH. I think we were typing like in the comment section or something. But yeah, we just have that symbol for it in phonetics. So anyway, back to I have ramus, which is part of the pelvic girdle, since, you know, I stuck with the anatomical theme. Ramus, so our sound is in the middle of the word. And for the final position, I chose pericardium. Pericardium. I don't remember. It definitely has to do with the heart, obviously. I think it might be the membrane that is on the outside of the heart. I forget. I don't know. It's been a while since I took anatomy. So the next phoneme is n, represented by the lowercase n, so should be very familiar to you. And I chose pneumonia as my example for having n in the initial position. And this obviously has a silent P. We don't say pneumonia, if we just say pneumonia. The word I chose for the medial position here is concha. Concha, which is a part of your inner ear. It's actually the this part of your inner ear where it's like filled with fluid. It's like really, really deep inside your ear. That's the concha. And for the final position of n, I have spine. Spine. And as it's written here in the phonetic alphabet. And of course our lovely illustrations of spines. So the next phoneme is one that probably looks strange to you if you're not familiar with phonetics. This sound is actually like kind of that, it's that NG sound that we say like whenever we say we're doing something, like I'm talking, I'm looking, I'm writing. That sound at the end, we in English typically write it as NG, like I said, but it's actually just one sound. It's actually not two sounds, at least the way that we typically pronounce it. So an example of the medial position is lungs. So lungs, like as it's written here, and you probably noticed there is no example of an initial position for ng because we don't have any words in English that begin with ng. I know there's words in other languages like Khmer, I think, I'm pretty sure, has words that start with ng, but we don't have any of those in English. So we only have the medial and the final. And for the final, I chose wing, wing, just like that. So back to some more normal looking phonemes. We have represented by a lowercase h. So in the initial position, I chose the word heart. And here's a really kind of disturbing picture of some sort of cross-section of someone's chest area. And then for the medial position of I chose inhale. And here's another case where we don't have 3 different examples for this one, because there's not really any words where we really have the sound at the end, unless you're like, I don't know, being silly or trying to like emphasize words or something. Like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example. Well, anyway, like meh would be a good example. It's not technically a word, I think, but if I was to say meh, like, I'm actually using the sound at the end of the word, but I don't think that my phonetics teacher would accept that as a good example. And I have no idea what kind of picture I'd put. Well, maybe just someone making a meh face, I don't know. But anyway. Now we have f, represented by a lowercase f. This one's pretty obvious, pretty straightforward. So the first word I chose was fascia, which is in your muscles. I want to say it's like the membranes that encase muscle groups, muscle bundle cells, muscle cell bundles, there you go, something like that. I don't even know why I remember this stuff from so many years ago. It's not like I ever use this information for anything. But fascia, so this is how you write it. Our f is in the beginning, obviously. And for the second word, I have scaphoid, which is one of the bones that's in your wrist. So that's what this picture of. It's basically just a bunch of wrist bones. I don't remember which one is the scaphoid. It's one of them though. And for the final position for f, I have, oh, let me see if I remember how to pronounce this. Let's see. Plethysmograph. Plethysmograph. Yeah, that's how you pronounce it. So obviously graph is at the end. I don't know why I chose this word. I don't even know what it is, because it's obviously something that, I don't know, like detects some sort of biological function or measures some kind of biological function of the body. I really don't remember. And for this project, it didn't really matter, honestly, as long as it was a real word and, you know, was an example of the right position of that phoneme, then my teacher didn't really care. So the next phoneme is represented by the lowercase v, so you pronounce it exactly as it looks. So the first letter, oh, my cat is very sad, my other cat. Oh, that's a sad kitty. first word is vellum. Vellum. The V sound is in the very beginning of the word. And the next word I have is convex. So V is in the middle of the word right here. V. And then the last word for the final position is negative tropism, which actually is technically 2 words, but if you're saying it as a term, I honestly don't even know what it is, but negative tropism, if you're using it as like a whole term, the V sound is still in the middle of the phrase or the term, even if we write it as 2 separate words. The way that you're pronouncing it, you're still putting the V sound in the middle of a series of phonemes, basically. Okay, so the next phoneme is this little 0 with the line going through it, and it's pronounced th. I think it's like a Greek letter, like theta or something. I don't remember, but in IPA, this is just the phoneme. So the words I chose were thyroid here in the initial position. This is how you write it. It looks so funny. Hyoid. And these are like vowel blends, as we refer to in phonetics. It's called a blend, a vowel blend. So it's a blend of ah and I, because we say thyroid. And then for the second word, I have somesthesia, which I don't remember what that is, but the th sound is in the middle, so I get credit. And the last one is moth. It's pretty straightforward. Moth. We have th at the end of the word. Okay, so the next phoneme is here. This one is not something that we have a special symbol for when we write English typically, but it's the other sound that the TH makes. So we know there's th, but we actually also say th, as in like this or that, and that's what this symbol represents, is th. So here I have there. This one's not anatomical. I must have not been able to find an anatomical word that started with th. So I just went with there. See? There. Go there. For the medial position, I have rhythm, as in like a heart rhythm. And that's in the medial position. So here it is right there. V. And then for the last one, I chose smooth muscle. So yeah, that's another example where it's technically 2 words as we write it in English, but if you're saying it as a term, as a phrase, then you are putting the sound in the middle of it. Oh wait, no, but this is an example of final. Well, if you just say smooth, then it's in the final position. Please excuse my sad cat. I promise he's not low-starved. He's just being a baby. So the next phoneme is y, represented by a lowercase j. That's a little strange, but we pronounce this y like a y, what we would typically write as y. So I have here yarrow. Again, I guess I could not find an anatomical example of a word that began with y, so I had to go with something else. Yarrow in the initial position. There it is, our y at the very beginning of the word. And the next one I have is hyoid. So this is the medial position. And the y is right here in the middle. Hyoid. And for the last position, the final position, it's pleurisy. Which I have pleurisy. The y is at the very end. Alright. Another pretty straightforward one here. W. Our phoneme w. I have wormian. For the initial position, I have dowel. W. Dowel. So the w is in the middle of the word. And for the final position, I have marrow. Marrow. So the w is at the very end, even if we pronounce it maybe a little soft. Marrow. Okay. Then we have or no, it's not this one is r, which is actually technically different from because is considered a vowel in phonetics, but this is considered a consonant, so r, as in reflex here, reflex, and coronal, coronal, so it's in the middle position there. And the last one I have here is healthcare. Healthcare. You'd be a little silly to say it like that, but alright. Ol is our next phoneme, and the words I have here are lingual. So ol is at the very beginning, and the next word is deltoid. So the del is in the middle of the word, the medial position. And the last word I have lateral, which has the o sound at the beginning and at the end. So here it is in the final position, lateral. Sorry, baby's he's being such a baby right now. Okay. This one is x. 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 And this is normally what we write as with an X symbol in English, but in phonetics we literally write it as KS, which is literally the sound you're making. X. Okay, let me just go address my cat issue here. Make sure the house isn't like burning down or something. I don't know why he's crying so much. It's because he can hear me talking in here and he feels left out. Give me just a minute, guys.
You
feel left out, babies. Come on. Just hang out, alright? Just don't knock shit over. Okay, so continuing, the word that I chose for Mike's sound, at or in the middle of the word, because there isn't any English words that start with x. Anytime we write that X at the beginning of the word, we always pronounce it Z. So there's really not any words that we actually say X at the beginning. It'd be kind of weird if we did. So for the medial position, I have occipital. Like your occipital bone, which is the bone at the back of your skull, the very base of your skull. That's what it looks like right here if you're looking at it by itself. And for the X sound at the end of a word, I have Pharynx. Pharynx, right here at the very end. Your pharynx is just basically your throat, the back of your mouth, kind of beginning of your throat area. Okay, so the next phoneme here is Q, which is written like this. It looks like a K and an upside down W connected together. Q. So the first word I have here is quadrangle, or quadrangular. Quadrangular. This is how you write it out. It looks so crazy. Quadrangular. In the initial position, we have our qu here. And for the medial position, we have frequency. So here's our qu right here in the middle. And of course, there's no examples of qu at the end of a word. I just don't think there's any English words that end in qu. Yeah. If you can think of any, let me know. I'm pretty sure there are not any. Unless you just make something up, which I'm totally okay with. Okay. S. So, we're gonna get some crinkles too. My cat has got into one of my bags over here. Oh, wow. Maybe that's all the crinkles we're gonna get. Shucks. Anyway, so this is the S phoneme, S, just like you would think it would sound. And so the words I have here for S are psychogenic, and it's written like this: psychogenic. And that's the S is in the initial position here at the very beginning. For the medial position, we have, okay, let's see, how do you pronounce this one? I actually have to read the IPA symbols because I'm not sure. Let's see. Mediastinum. Oh, mediastinum. Mediastinum, that's how you pronounce it. So obviously our S sound is in the middle of that word. Okay, and then for the final position, I have, let's see, how is this one pronounced too? Let's see. Meadus. meatus. Meatus. I don't know what it is. I don't remember, but I have this picture here. Oh. I guess we are being treated to more crinkles. Little random kitty crinkles. What are you getting into? Are you being a naughty boy? No, he's just being too curious. Okay. Moving on. Okay, our next phoneme is Z. Pretty straightforward. It's represented with the lowercase z, and the first word I have here is xiphoid, and this is how you write it in English, xiphoid. So there's that example of the X at the beginning of a word that sounds like a Z. We wouldn't say like xiphoid. That'd be kind of, it's actually kind of fun to say, xiphoid. I think we should say it like that. But this is how you write it in IPA here, so xiphoid. It's in the initial position. And for the second word, I have plasma, as in like your blood plasma. And the Z sound is in the middle of the word, of course. And then for the last one I have here is carpals. Carpals, which are your finger bones, or it's like your hand bones right here. Like basically the bones that make up the palm of your hand. So those are your carpals. And then you have your metacarpals out here, I think. Don't use this to like study for an anatomy test or anything, because I might be kind of wrong about it. It has something to do with your hand for sure. Okay. So the next phoneme that we have here is sh. And it's represented with sort of like this weird elongated S, like an S that's been kind of stretched out like this. You know, in English we write it as an SH, but it's actually its own sound. I mean, if you were to actually pronounce SH the way it's written, you would say S. So sh is actually its own sound, so they gave it its own symbol in the phonetic alphabet. So for the first word I have here is, oh, this is another weird one. Let me see if I can figure out how to pronounce it here. If I can remember. Shindellesis. Yeah. Shindellesis. I have no idea what that is. But the sh is right there in the initial position. And for the sh sound in the medial position, no, but you don't do that. I have eustachian. Eustachian is the little tiny, this is not a good picture of it, but it's actually the tube that connects your inner ear with your throat. Oh, excuse you, bitchy. I get little kitty sneezes too. So the eustachian tube connects your inner ear with your throat, which is why sometimes when you get like sick in your throat, sometimes the insides of your ears feel like they're itching. It's because they're actually connected. And then for the last word I have is squeamish, which seems appropriate for the theme I stuck with for this project. This is definitely not a book for squeamish people to be looking at. Sorry if that is not compatible with your ASMR. I'll have nicer videos later, I promise. Oh, okay, so the next phoneme here is j, which we always think of like j as something that is like a French sound, but we do actually say it in English quite a bit, but it's represented by this symbol right here. It kind of looks like the number 3 a little bit, but yeah, it scoops out a little further. And I couldn't actually, there actually aren't any English words that begin with j. Really, we usually say it in the middle of the word or at the end of a word, but I still had to come up with an example. So the example here I found was jabot, which I guess is that thing, or at least it probably has something to do with this thing. I don't really know what it is, but it's the only word I could find that began with j that is still technically an English word, even if it's not one that anybody uses anymore. But so for the medial position, I have seizure. So like, even though in English we write a Z here in the word seizure, the way we pronounce it is actually with that j sound here. J. Seizure. That's in the medial. And then for the last word I have here is massage. So the j sound is at the very end. Okay. Oh, this one's weird. Okay, I'm kind of remembering this now. This is actually kind of a weird symbol, and I don't know why they have 2 different symbols that represent the same sound. So this is the symbol for like I told you earlier, that like r is considered a consonant, but if you say then it is a vowel. So this is a vowel and if you have the sound at the beginning of a word, then you write it like this, where it looks like the 3 with like a little doggy ear on it or whatever. So like herbal remedy would be a good example of the at the beginning. But I guess if the sound is in the medial or final position, then we actually draw it like this. I don't know if you can see that. It's like a little loop with a doggy ear. I don't know why. It's the same sound, but I don't know why they have a different symbol if it's at the beginning versus if it's in the middle or the end. But whatevs, man. So here I have utero. So the is in the medial position, utero. And for in the final position, I have trochanter, which is a part of your hip bone, or actually it's part of your femur, but it makes up like what we would consider your hip. So at the very end. Okay, so here we have E, another vowel sound, E. And I know that in English the E sound pops up all over the place, and sometimes we write it with the letter E, sometimes we write it with 2 letter E's, sometimes we write it with the EA, sometimes it's a Y, sometimes it is actually an I. But in phonetics we always write it as a lowercase I anytime we make the E sound. So for the first word I have elastic tissue. So the E is right here in the beginning. And for the medial position I have epithelium. ep, if, e, l, e, y, So there's actually two e's in the middle of that one. Epithelium. And then here I have rudimentary. So yeah, we typically write it with a y, but the way we say it, it's just that e sound, so we write lowercase I here in the final position. I think this is one of my favorite symbols right here because I'm such a phonetics geek, but this one's actually pronounced a. Wait, yeah, a. As in like apple or Africa. It's that sound. We normally write it with an A. So the first one I have here is Anorexia. I know this picture is quite disturbing. I actually like it. It's kind of like a piece of artwork. Somebody drew, I don't have the artist's name, but it's sort of like their very graphic, artistic representation of anorexia. Yeah, it's a little disturbing, but appropriate for the theme. So that's the initial position, anorexia, there it is. And in the medial position, we have sagittal. I don't remember what sagittal is. It has to do with like to the side, like sagittal, or something. It has to do with how you dissect something. So there it is, right there in the middle of the word for the medial position. And we don't have any words in the English language that end in a. Yeah, we don't really talk like that, and again, unless you're like being silly, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example. Like if you were talking like, I don't know, that you're just being silly, like, I don't know, I totally can't think of an example right now, but, okay, so the next one is actually, wait, there's two different us. Oh no, that's not it. Anyway. Yeah, okay, so can be written like this, where it's just basically like an upside down V. So this is a vowel sound, like UH. But it also can be written like this little symbol right here, the upside down E, like I said earlier. And I can't remember what the distinction is. They make the same sound, but you use the symbol different. I don't know why, I can't remember, but the first example is aphasia. So this actually has a at the beginning and at the end of the word, but notice that two different symbols were used to transcribe it. But it makes the same sound. It's aphasia. For the medial position, we have buttocks. Buttocks. Yeah. So yeah, buttocks or buttocks, depending on how you say it. Some people say buttocks, some people say buttocks with the little soft D sound. It's a fun word to say, either way. Alright, so the last word I have here is axilla, which is like your armpit or something. Axilla. So the sound is right here at the end. Axilla. Okay. The next one is O, as in ovaries at the beginning here. Ovaries. Hormone. So O is in the middle of that word. The medial position. And then the last one I have embryo. Oh, there it is in the final position. And there's a little baby embryo. Okay. Still got a few to do here. So this one is ooh. As in ooze. Oh my gosh, that scared the crap out of me. I hope it didn't scare the crap out of you guys. Anyway, ooh. And nucleus is the example I have for the middle. Nucleus. And then tissue. With the ooh at the end here. Tissue. So, oh, this one. This phoneme is pronounced eh. Like, I guess we would normally write it like EH, eh. Like as in meh. But we write it like a backwards E. Or no, sorry, a backwards 3. So the examples I have here are edema. So the eh is at the beginning of the word, edema. And then medial position is cerebellum. We actually have 2 e's here in the middle. Oh no, we actually have 3. I was really ambitious with this word. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry, you guys. Should have put my phone on silent before I did this. Okay. So cerebellum actually has 3 e's in the middle position. And again, we don't have a final position because meh isn't technically a word. I would have loved to include it, but I probably would have been docked points if I did on this assignment. So A, this is actually pronounced A, even though it looks like an E. A. So here we have apex in the initial position. The A is at the front. We have sacrum, so the A sound is in the middle of the word sacrum. And then vertebrae, we have the A sound at the end of the word, at the final position. Okay, so the next one is actually a blend vowel sound. We refer to these as blends in phonetics. And this one is pronounced oi. Oi. So the examples I have are ointment. So the oi is right here at the beginning. It's actually written with like a backwards C and then like a capital I with this little connecting swoop thing at the bottom. And for the medial position, I have cricoid, which is just like one of the cartilages you have in your throat, the cricoid cartilage. The oi is right here in the medial position. And then for the last one, I chose the word boy because it's in the final position. Boy. Yeah. Alright. The next phoneme is I. Another blend. I. So we have isotonic. Isotonic. And then we have mitosis. So here's the I. Mitosis. In the medial position, there's I in the medial, and then bronchi. Bronchi. That's how you pronounce it. Bronchi. I. Right there in the final position. Bronchi. Right. So now we have ow. Another blend. It's written like this. Ow. So the examples I have here are outer ear. So we have outer. We say outer or outer. Ear. That's how you write ear. IR. Next one I have is bowel. So the ow is right in the middle of the word. And then the last word is sow, as in a pig. So ow, right at the end there. And that's actually it. That's all of the phonemes I had to do for this project. I hope you weren't too disturbed by the pictures. I hope you weren't too disturbed by the phone noises. I hope you weren't too disturbed by the kitty-crinkles. Alright, thanks for joining me. I promise my next video won't be so dark. I'm gonna try and mix it up a little bit. Maybe with some fun stuff, you know, like some more Legos or other things. Other toys or fun things. So anyway, thanks for hanging out with me, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.